Hello, everyone. This is Jimmy Cultist, and welcome back to part 2 of our series on creating an exploration game in Dreams. This can also be considered somewhat of a crash course on Dreams basics, as I view the exploration game as one of the most easiest games to construct within Dreams, which is, I suppose if you're wondering what genre that is, it's like a point-and-click, maybe. I usually consider point-and-clicks games where you have to click on things to progress, but no matter. There is no mouse interface for Dreams. Anyway, we covered the basic puppet parameters, and today we're going to be covering basic interactions for the puppet. Now, I want you to go in here to Logic and Processing. Oh, and by the way, that can be found in Gadgets, in case you're interested. We're going to take out a microchip. Now, what a microchip does is store logic. You'll notice these microchips here have logic in them. And the benefit, besides organization, is that if you want to shut something off, you can simply turn the power off on the microchip. And that's really handy in some cases, because you don't always want these things operating all at once for various reasons, both economical and, gameplay reasons. And you can easily open the tweak menu and customize how it looks and what color it is with L1 and square. Shut it like so. And if you want to scope into it, just L1 and X to open it up. We're going to name this one Interact. This is going to store the majority of our interaction logic. Now, what is interaction logic exactly? Well, I'll show you. Basically, it's the puppet's ability to, turn on a switch or things like that. We're going to go in here and take out a node from Logic and Processing. And a node is basically just a place where you can connect a wire and then take the output and connect it to an input. This is an input. This is an output. So just keep that in mind. Now we're going to go to our controller logic. And we're going to press L1 and square to open the tweak menu, and in here you'll see the various outputs for button prompts. So if you want to press triangle and have something happen, this is where you get access to that. Now if you just go ahead and click on this with X, you'll get this little wire here. And this little wire is very important. That is the output of triangle. We're going to put it in the node. We're using triangle as our interact button. That's my personal preference. You don't really have to do that. And we're going to take a tag from sensors and input. Now, what is a tag exactly? A tag is a very handy thing. It interacts with multiple pieces of logic, trigger zones, teleporters, and followers, which we'll maybe get into at a later date. But for now, it's enough to know that a tag is a very handy piece of logic. Here you can rename the tag, and what you name it is very important. So if you name it something, remember what you named it and whether you capitalized it and whatnot. For now, we're going to label ours use, which is my common phraseology for interaction. And you'll notice this little white dot at the base of the puppet. This is the tag's position, and it's rather important. You'll also notice this Z, X, and Y axis right here, which is also important. In this case, it's not super important, but for other kind of, logical programs it is. But we're just going to go ahead and use grid snap, and you can grab these little things here and move it around. And it's usually good to have Y at the top and Z at the front. It may not be important now, but it could be important later. Now that that's stamped out, we're just going to take the output from this node and stick it in the power, like so. By the way, certain pieces of logic, all of them have power nodes, but you can't always gain access to them easily. This one is always displayed clearly for you to put the wire in, but if you wanted to gain access to the power node, this thing, if you wanted to gain access to this, the ability to turn it on and off, you would have to open this menu, so that's just something to keep in mind. A lot of these things, though, are very easy, and Dreams has already made it, pretty quick and nifty to just plug that in there. But we're going to go ahead and stamp out a shape real quick. It's good to use grid snap for these sort of things. But this is basically going to act as a barrier for our puppet to pass through. A doorway of sorts. Just gonna copy this out here. By the way, the universal button for cloning in Dreams is L1 and R2. We may be getting into that more later, but for now, that's just all you need to know. Consider this an impassable wall. We may stretch it out just a little bit to make it actually impassable. And we're going to add a little door. A simple little door, but nonetheless very important for our experiment. Alright, and you're going to want to go ahead and label these scenery. Always do this when you're constructing assets. I don't care if they're chairs, tables, or whatever. Unless you want them to be non-collidable, label them scenery. So just keep that in mind anytime you're constructing a scene. Now we're going to group these two objects. Now, what is grouping? It's basically a way of creating scenes, which outside of Dreams is a term for, you know, a collection of things. But just think of grouping like gluing things together so that when you move them, they're all in one piece. So just press X on both of them, and then press this handy group button here. We're going to take out another microchip and put it on top of the group. It's always good to first group things before putting the microchip on them. That's generally a good rule of thumb. But this is basically going to be our door's ability to open and close. Now we're going to take out a trigger zone, and we're going to set it to label. Now this is going to be important. Go to zone shape, which you can change in here. Make it a square. And this is going to be the distance at which our puppet can interact with this door. And you'll notice this sort of green glowiness everywhere. That's basically an indicator of what the zone can collide with. If you turn these off, you'll see all of a sudden it doesn't, it doesn't glow green except on the puppet, which is what we want. We only want it to detect a friend and nothing else. Now we're just going to want to stamp this out and copy it, and we're going to change it to tag. Now, why are we doing this? I'll explain in a moment. We're going to label it use. So when this tag is within this zone, when the use tag is operable within this zone, it will send a signal out through this wire, which is precisely what we want. Now we're going to go ahead and take out a selector. And a selector is basically just a cheap and easy way of creating a switch. You can also use counters, but we'll just use a selector. Take this and put it in B input. Now we're going to take out a keyframe. And basically what this is going to do is control the position of our door, which we're going to have open inward so it doesn't collide with the player. And a handy way to create a cheap animation for a door opening, if you don't want it to be abrupt, which it will be very abrupt. It will be instantaneous. It'll just be like blink of an eye, the door is open. If you want it to be a slow transition, just go to slow power up. And that will make it take some time before it reaches its full open position. Very handy for creating quick animations. I wouldn't advise it in all cases, but in this case it's useful. Now we're going to take out a text displayer. And this is going to act as a prompt to let us know when we are able to interact with the selector. And triangle is our button of choice, as I stated earlier. So that's what we're going to want to display in the prompt. And we're going to put a word, just to give an idea of what sort of action we're accomplishing. Open. And we're going to want it to hover in front of the door, so set it to in scene. We're going to move it over so that it's more centered. You can just grab it with R2 and do that. Then you can turn on always face camera, so no matter what direction the camera is, it will be oriented properly. Now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and stick the detected label into the start text input on the text displayer. Now basically, this zone we set up earlier is the same size as the U zone, which is exactly what we want, so that when you're in this zone, you'll know you can activate that one. We're also going to want to stick this in the power, so that unless you're in here, you can't trigger this. So this is the safe spot. Once you're in here, you can definitely open it. Now there's one other thing we're going to want to do, and that's go to Logic and Processing and take out a NOT gate. Now what does a NOT gate do? Basically, a NOT gate is the opposite of whatever input that comes into it. So, say if this trigger zone is on, it would actually turn off the NOT gate if it were plugged into its input. And when this trigger zone is not on, the NOT gate is actually active, so it's the opposite. That means that if we plug it in here, it will be supplying power to the trigger zone. However, if we take the output from B and stick it in the NOT gate, and then B is triggered, this will no longer be operable and the prompt will never show. So that's what we prefer for this experiment. By the way, there's something else you might want to do. Real quick, go into the keyframe and make the door non-collidable. That way, when it opens, it won't get all janky, won't slap the player, and it won't slap the surrounding scenery. It's just a little precaution. It's not always necessary, but in this case, I'm going to do it. So let's go into our puppet and see how this all works. The prompt is showing up, press triangle, and the door opens. Now, if you wanted to hook up a sound effect, it would be really easy. Just go to search sound effects and find something real quick. And stick that right here. Take the B output, set it to play once, and basically, yeah, that's all you need to do if you want to hook up a sound effect to one of these things. But that's pretty much all for simple interaction. There's more things that could be done with this, of course. You could pick up tools and do all sorts of cool stuff, which I will be covering later. But for now, this is the most basic form of interaction, which is opening doors, gaining access to new areas. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial and found it useful, and we're going to give a little shout out and a little cheer for our monthly subscribers. Here are their names, if there's more than one. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. If you wish to support our earnest insanity, you can check the links in the description to donate or buy merch. Until next time, goodbye.